If you've ever wondered why you push people away just when they get close, why love feels more like a test than a comfort, why success never truly quiets that voice inside saying, "You're still not enough," this video will explain exactly why. And no, it's not your mindset. It's not just trauma. It's a pattern so old, so deeply wired, that most people live and die without ever naming it. It's called the mother wound. And it doesn't just shape how you love. It controls how you see yourself, how you set boundaries, how you deal with failure, and even how you breathe when you're alone in a room. The reason your healing isn't working isn't because you're weak. It's because you're treating symptoms, not the root. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how this wound operates silently in your adult life, ruining relationships, killing self-worth, and repeating pain through patterns you think are choices. And more importantly, I'll show you how to break it. This video isn't theory, it's a mirror. And if you have the courage to look into it, what you find could change everything. You've adapted your whole life to survive this wound. Now it's time to live without it. You grow up thinking pain is just part of life. You see it in your mother's eyes, in the way she holds her silence, in the way she applauds only when you perform. And you learn, without anyone needing to say it out loud, that love has rules. Be quiet, be good, be useful. And when you are, affection appears. But not always. Sometimes even then, love stays hidden. So you try harder. You become excellent. You achieve, please, behave. But underneath that obedient smile, a silent question forms. Why doesn't this feel like enough? That question doesn't go away. It just sinks deeper, hiding behind careers, relationships, productivity. It grows up with you. And Carl Jung, long before we had hashtags and self-help books, warned us, the things we bury become the things that control us. You don't realize it, but you're not just healing yourself. You're negotiating with an internal mother who still whispers, "You are only safe when you're perfect." The mother wound is not about blame. It's about understanding the source of your silence. It's not about hating your mom. It's about realizing how much of her pain lives in you. That voice in your head that tells you to stay quiet, stay small, stay pleasing. It sounds like you now, but it didn't start with you. And that's the trap. We think our thoughts are ours. But what if they were inherited? Passed down like furniture in a house we never chose to live in? When your mother was absent, critical, or even just emotionally inconsistent, your inner child didn't see it as her limitation. It saw it as your failure. And that child didn't disappear. She adapted. She became a hyper-responsible adult, terrified of being a burden. And now, every time someone praises you, you wait for the moment they'll see through you. That's not insecurity. That's conditioning. That's what happens when a child is taught that love is a transaction. You want to believe you've outgrown it. That therapy session, that breakup, that move to another city, it should have been enough to leave the past behind. But emotional wounds don't respond to logic. They respond to presence. And the mother wound isn't just emotional, it's archetypal. It goes beyond events. It's embedded in your nervous system, your breathing, the way you say sorry for existing. Jung described this as the shadow, the part of ourselves we reject to survive in a world that asks us to be useful, not whole. So you build a persona. You smile when you want to scream. You give when you want to rest. You become a version of yourself that keeps you safe, but not alive. And you start to wonder, is this really me? Or just the safest version of me I've ever known? That question burns, because deep down you already know the answer. And here's the cruelest part. This wound makes you choose people who feel like home, even when home was chaos. You fall in love with distance, with coldness, with people who make you prove your worth over and over. Why? Because it feels familiar. It feels like childhood. You're not addicted to pain. You're addicted to patterns. The wound makes rejection feel deserved. makes affection feel suspicious. And suddenly, love isn't a gift. It's a test. Can you earn it? Can you perform enough? Serve enough? Shrink enough to be worthy? You tell yourself you're just unlucky in love. But maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's the echo of your mother's silence, still asking to be resolved. And here's the hardest truth. Until you confront that silence, it will echo through every relationship you enter. Not because you're broken, but because your pain never had a witness. People don't talk about how lonely this process is. Emotional healing isn't glamorous. It's sitting in a room with yourself and finally hearing all the things you were too busy to feel. The guilt, the rage, the grief of never having been held the way you needed. And yes, there's rage, and you're allowed to feel it. You were told not to. You were told to be grateful, to be silent, to protect the one who couldn't protect you. But healing requires disobedience. You must name what happened. You must say, that wasn't love. That was survival disguised as affection. And when you do, something shifts. You stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to find yourself. Because the real you isn't too needy, too emotional, too much. The real you is just tired of performing. But healing isn't just insight, it's reparenting. It's choosing to become the mother you never had. Not to erase your past, but to rewrite your present. That looks like saying no without guilt, resting without earning it, holding yourself through panic instead of abandoning your body. It's hard, because no one taught you, but you can learn. You can learn to listen to your body instead of silencing it. You can learn to say, I matter, without a list of reasons why. This is shadow work, not the trendy kind, but the real kind. The messy, quiet, sobbing on the floor kind. The kind that doesn't show on Instagram. But you'll know it's working when your self-worth no longer depends on how useful you are. When love stops being a transaction and starts being a birthright. Still, most people will avoid this. They'll say they're fine. They'll numb. They'll run. Because facing this wound means facing the fear that you were never truly seen. And that's a terrifying thought. But what if facing that pain is the only way to finally be free from it? What if your deepest wound holds the exact map to your emotional freedom? Imagine waking up and not feeling the need to prove anything to anyone. Imagine speaking without apologizing, loving without shrinking. That isn't fantasy. That's the other side of the mother wound. And you get there by turning inward. Not once, every day. By choosing again and again to be the parent you always needed. Especially on the days when your inner child screams the loudest. Because healing the mother wound isn't about fixing her. It's about freeing yourself. And that's a radical act. In a world that profits off your insecurity, loving yourself is rebellion. In a family where silence was the rule, telling your truth is revolution. And in a mind where guilt ran the show, peace is a revolution. You don't get there overnight, but you get there. Through presence, through patience, through practice. And maybe, just maybe, through this video, through this moment, you've already begun. You've already cracked open a door that's been locked for decades, and what lies beyond it is worth everything. You think you're making choices. You think you're in control. But when the same pain keeps coming back wearing different faces, it's time to ask, who's really steering the wheel? That relationship where you gave too much. That job where you stayed too long. That friend who drained you. Again and again, the players change, but the feeling remains the same. Not enough. Unseen. Replaceable. You blame circumstances, luck, timing. But beneath it all, something older is pulling the strings. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is fate disguised as repetition. The mother wound becomes a lens, filtering everything, love, trust, worthiness, through the cracks of your earliest pain. And what you call type or pattern is often just your nervous system chasing familiarity, even if it hurts. You don't pick people. Your wound picks them. That might sound harsh, but look closely. How often do you feel truly safe in love? How often do you accept less than you deserve? Because part of you still believes you have to earn affection. You weren't taught to receive. You were trained to perform. And now you keep repeating the performance, hoping someone will finally applaud for the real you. But they never do. Because you're not showing the real you. You're showing the version of yourself designed to avoid abandonment. And that version keeps attracting partners, bosses, even friends who mirror the emotional dynamics you swore you'd never repeat. Why? Because pain, when not healed, feels like home. It's not about logic. It's about biology. It's your inner child trying to fix the story by rewriting it with new characters. This cycle is exhausting, and yet, it feels safer than stepping into the unknown. It's easier to stay in what's familiar, even if it wounds you, than to risk rewriting the entire script. That's the invisible comfort of the wound. It gives you something to hold on to, an identity, a justification, a story. This is just how I am. Love always ends like this. People always leave. But those aren't truths. They're echoes, ghosts of what once was. And until you recognize them, they will keep you trapped in an emotional loop where every new beginning tastes like the same old ending. You can't heal what you keep reenacting, and you can't break the cycle if you're not willing to look at your role in it. Not to blame yourself, but to free yourself. Let's be real. Healing this isn't a cute Pinterest quote. It's gritty. It's terrifying. Because stepping out of the loop means stepping into responsibility. And that means letting go of the wound as your excuse. The moment you say, "I choose differently," is the moment you lose the right to say, "It's just how I was raised." That's not cruelty. It's liberation. You can't hold the sword and the shield at the same time. You have to choose. And yes, it's scary. Because now, if you fail, it's on you. If you sabotage, you can't blame the past. But here is the paradox. The same moment that terrifies you is the one that frees you. Because once the cycle becomes visible, it becomes breakable. And that's where your power lives. In your awareness, not your avoidance. This is where shadow work becomes non-negotiable. You don't need more positivity. You need honesty. Brutal, tender, piercing honesty. The kind that admits, I was choosing pain because I thought that's all I deserved. I was recreating my childhood so I could finally win, even if I lost myself trying. Shadow work isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming whole. It's seeing the parts of you that you've disowned and saying, you belong here too. The jealous part, the scared part, the manipulative part, the one who lies to feel safe. You bring them all in, not to justify them, but to understand them. Because what you understand, you can choose to change. What you reject, you just keep repeating in disguise. You may not have noticed, but every time you stayed silent to avoid conflict, every time you abandoned yourself to keep someone else, you fed the cycle. And over time, you forgot how to speak your truth. You lost track of your needs. You became a ghost in your own life. The worst part? No one else saw it. Because you kept functioning, paying bills, smiling in photos, giving advice. But deep down, you were screaming for someone to notice you were still hurting, still waiting for someone to rescue you. But no one's coming. And that's the best news you'll ever hear. Because it means the person who saves you is already here. It means your healing doesn't depend on someone else finally loving you right. It depends on you loving yourself radically different. Here's a small but powerful practice. Every time you feel that old pull toward a toxic pattern, a familiar wound, a triggered emotion, pause. Ask yourself, am I repeating or am I remembering who I am? Keep a journal just for this. Call it your pattern tracker. Every entry is a rebellion. Every time you notice the loop, you weaken it. This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. And with time, awareness becomes choice. And choice becomes freedom. You start to say no without guilt. You walk away without shame. You love without losing yourself. Because when you heal the pattern, you reclaim your authority. You become your own emotional compass. And that changes everything, from who you date to how you breathe. But don't be fooled. The cycle doesn't just vanish. It waits. It tests. It returns. And that's okay. You're not here to be flawless. You're here to be free. And freedom is messy. Some days you'll nail it. Others you'll fall right back in. But even in the fall, you'll notice something's different. You're aware. You're awake. You're no longer sleepwalking through your emotional life. And that's everything. Because once your eyes are open, even the darkness can't convince you it's light. And maybe, just maybe, that awareness is what will carry you into the next phase. The one where love no longer means proving your worth. The one where you stop looking for healing in old places. The one where the cycle finally loses its grip. Healing isn't about becoming a better version of yourself. That idea sounds nice, marketable even, but it's wrong. Real healing is remembering. It's peeling back the layers of adaptation, of survival, of who you had to become to be accepted, and asking, who was I before the world told me who to be? That question is scary because it means letting go of roles that protected you. The achiever, the caretaker, the fixer. You didn't choose those masks. They chose you, in moments of emotional emergency. And now, they've become your face. But they're not your identity. They're your armor. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of returning to your essence, your true self, unshaped by trauma or expectation. And that self isn't waiting at the top of a mountain. It's buried right beneath your pain, quietly asking for permission to exist again. The hardest part? You've been taught to mistrust that self, to believe that if you stop performing, you'll be abandoned. That if you show your real emotions, your neediness, your fears, your messy truth, no one will stay. And maybe that did happen once. Maybe you were punished for crying, ignored when you were scared, told to toughen up when you needed tenderness. So now, even as an adult, every time you start to soften, you flinch. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system remembers. It remembers being small and emotional in a world that rewarded only silence. So healing becomes an act of rebellion, of reparenting, of sitting with that inner child and saying what no one ever said, you don't have to be anything to deserve love. And that moment, that's when the journey really begins. But don't expect it to feel like magic. Most days, healing feels boring. Like journaling when you'd rather scroll. Like choosing boundaries over validation. Like eating dinner alone instead of chasing a text back. It's not dramatic. It's not Instagrammable. But it's holy. Every small decision to show up for yourself, especially when no one's watching, rewires your story. Because healing is cumulative. It stacks. And over time, the patterns lose strength. The triggers lose sharpness. You stop spiraling, not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally come home. That's what emotional healing really is, a homecoming. Not to the version of you that coped, but to the version of you that dreamed, laughed freely, and trusted people without rehearsing at first. Along this path, you'll grieve, deeply, not just for what happened, but for what never did. The mother you never had, the protection you never felt, the voice that was never encouraged. And grief, real grief, doesn't ask for permission, it floods. One minute you're making coffee, and the next you're crying over a memory that never even happened. Because it should have. That's not regression, that's repair. Let it come. Let it wash through you. Don't rush it. Don't fix it. Just stay. Presence is the medicine. In a world that taught you to numb and flee, staying is sacred. That's how the wound starts to dissolve. Not when it disappears, but when it no longer defines your worth. When you no longer need pain to feel real. And slowly, the way you speak to yourself changes. You stop calling yourself dramatic. You stop shaming your softness. You stop questioning your intuition. You start to parent yourself the way no one ever did, with consistency, patience, and gentleness. You build rituals that keep you anchored, daily check-ins, silent mornings, breath work, stillness. Not because they're trendy, but because your nervous system craves safety. And safety isn't a place, it's a practice. One breath at a time, one choice at a time, you remind your body, it's safe to be me now. And that message, repeated enough, becomes truth. It becomes your baseline. And from that foundation, you start to live, not survive, not please, not endure, but live. People around you will notice the shift. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You're no longer available for conditional love. You no longer laugh to ease tension you didn't create. You no longer apologize for taking up space. But this isn't a performance. You're not doing it to prove anything. You're doing it because something inside you woke up. And once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. You start choosing different partners. Saying no without panic. Saying yes without fear. The world looks the same, but you don't. Because now, every decision filters through a new question. Is this true to me? And the more you ask that question, the more you return. Not to some ideal version of yourself, but to the one who was always there, waiting. This isn't the end of the story, it's a threshold. Because healing isn't linear. You'll revisit old wounds, you'll regress, you'll get triggered. But now, you'll know what to do. You won't shame the setback, you'll sit with it, you'll ask what it's here to teach, and you'll move forward. Not because you have to, but because you can. That's the difference. The old you ran from pain. The new you listens to it. Because now, you trust your own resilience. You've seen what happens when you stay with yourself. You felt the power of choosing presence over performance. And that presence is what leads you forward, into a life that feels real, that feels yours. And from here, the real transformation begins. Because when you no longer need to be someone else to be loved, you start creating relationships, routines, even careers that align with who you are, not who you pretended to be. And that ripple changes everything, not just for you, but for everyone who meets you. You become living proof that healing is possible, that returning to yourself isn't weakness, it's wisdom, that the past may have shaped you, but it doesn't own you. And suddenly, you look in the mirror and see someone you recognize. Not the mask, not the adaptation, but the real you. The one who never left. The one who's finally home. So now that you see the wound, what are you going to do with it? Will you keep performing for love that never feels safe? Keep repeating stories that never end well? Or are you finally ready to break the pattern and reclaim your voice, your boundaries, your peace? Healing isn't a moment, it's a decision. And you don't have to fix everything today, but you do have to stop pretending it doesn't affect you. Because it does. It always has. In your work, in your relationships, in the way you speak to yourself when no one's watching. What would your life look like if you stopped negotiating your worth? What could you build if you no longer needed to prove yourself just to feel lovable? That version of you. It's not a fantasy. It's your next chapter. And it begins the moment you stop blaming and start returning. So I'll ask you this. What's one belief you inherited from your mother that you're finally ready to let go? Drop it in the comments. Your truth might be the permission someone else needs. And if this video shook something inside you, Don't leave it here. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Because this is just the beginning. You're not broken. You're becoming. Let's walk this path together.